right, hi everyone. So this morning we're going to go over the Pythagorean theorem again. I'm going to review last Thursday's form that we filled out that talked about the Pythagorean theorem problem with my house. And then we had the Central Park question, and we finally ended with the NFL question. So I'm going to go over those three questions, and then you're going to have a form that you need to complete. So let's get started. This is the beginning slide here. I want you to take a look at the formula, and we're going to reuse that formula over to talk about my house. So again, the formula was a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And remember, when we deal with a squared plus b squared plus c squared, when that was discovered, it was discovered as long as you had a right triangle, that it was discovered that if you took the square of one side, that created the 90-degree angle, and the square of the second side, or the second leg that made the 90-degree angle, it always equaled the square of the hypotenuse, or of the longer side. So we end up with a squared, and then b squared is equal to c squared. And c squared is always your longest side, or the hypotenuse. A and B are always your legs, and it does not matter which one you choose to be which leg, but just as long as you understand that the two legs make up that 90-degree angle and the hypotenuse is the opposite. So let me erase this and let's take a look at the problem with my house. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And the legs in the case of the triangle that's formed by my house is we have the length of my house, how tall I should say it is, which is 20 feet, and we can call that a squared. And if we add to that the square of the other leg that creates this 90-degree angle here, we're going to get 10 squared. And altogether, that will give me this hypotenuse, or what I'm trying to figure out is the height of the ladder that I'm going to have to put there so I can reach that hole. And so that is going to give us c squared. So now we just have to calculate 20 squared, which becomes 20 times 20. And this one I should be able to, or you should be able to do it in your head, because we should know that 2 times 2 is 4. And that we have there to a magnitude 10 times and then 100 times greater, because we have a 10 times greater here and another 10 times greater there. So that will give us 400. Plus 10 times 10, should put a plus sign there, and 10 times 10 we should all know is 100. And that's going to all equal c squared. So now I know that 400 plus 100 is 500. C equals c squared. Now, hopefully we don't stop here, because I would hope that you wouldn't tell me I need a 500-foot ladder to get to the top of my house. We can clearly see that the height of my house is to get to that hole is 20 feet. Therefore, a 500-foot ladder would take me far beyond that. So when we get to this point, we have to make sure that we are taking the square root of this amount, because I know that the answer is c squared, which means I have to find the square root of that. So getting the square root of c squared gives us c, and the square root of 500. And if you don't know what the square root of 500 is, we can pull up a calculator and we just plug it into our calculator. So I'm going to do 500. My square root symbol is in this little window here. And we're going to get 22.36067. We only need to go to, I'm going to take it to the hundreds place. I think I did that in the question. So 22.36 feet, or about 22 1/3 foot ladder. So if I get a 23-foot ladder, I'm good. Okay. And I did happen to ask my husband, and we happen to have a 30-foot ladder, which will get us up to that edge. All right, so let's move on to the next question. The next question was Central Park. And Central Park, when we're dealing with this question here, we really need to identify the legs of this triangle. So let's redo that. And so the legs of this triangle are going to be the right angle. So we have to identify this right angle over here. And if you know, when we drive, when you're driving down the streets here, that this will be one leg and this will be the other leg. And the hypotenuse is the distance, the diagonal from that. So all we have to do now is calculate our Pythagorean theorem here. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And again, I know that c squared is going to be this diagonal. So I know I have my two legs. The order in which I do my two legs does not matter. So I'm just going to put 0.5 squared plus 2.5 squared equals c squared. And if you don't know what 0.5 is, again, you can just pull up a calculator and you can do, 0.5 times 0.5. And many of you already knew that, but it's 0.25. So I'm going to put 0.25 plus what is 2.5 times 2.5. Many of you may know that 2.25 times 25 is 625. So 2.5 times 2.5 is going to be 6.25. And that is equal to c squared. And at this point, we need to add these two together. So basically, I look at this as 25 cents plus $6.25 is going to get me 6.50, which equals c squared. Now, again, we can't just leave it like this because I don't want to solve for c squared. I want to know what c is. So if that's the case, I need to make sure I take that square root. So I'm going to take the square root of 6.50, and I'm going to get c equals, and I'm going to go back to my calculator, and I'm going to clear it out. I'm going to say 6.50, and I want the square root of that. And it's going to give me 2.5495, and so on. I'm going to take it to the hundredths place, and I'm going to say it's 2.5, and I have to round up because if you take a look here, you're going to have your, you have 2.549. So it'll be 2.55 because that 9 makes the 4 round up. And so that would be in miles. And that's going to give us C. I'm sorry about the square down there. That's going to give us the answer for C. Okay, so those were two examples of when we need to find the hypotenuse. So let's take a look at the exact last example. This was the football example. And so I want to take a look at using the same formula and then looking at what information we're given. So again, we're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we have to think about what we were given. So I'm going to pull out the highlighter here. What we were given is here is the right angle. So we are given 21, and here is the other leg, which is x. So in this case, I know the hypotenuse. So I know c. I do not know one of the legs. So now we have a little bit different of a problem. So you have to pay attention to what you're given. So I'm going to change up my pen here quick, and we're going to plug in. So I'm going to say the 21 is a squared. So 21 squared plus, I don't know what this is. So now I have x squared or b squared. It doesn't matter what variable you use. I'll just put in b squared since it's up here. And that is going to be equal to my 29 squared. So this is a little bit different of a problem. So now I have to square 21. So I'm going to pull up my calculator, and I'm going to do 21 times 21, and that's going to give me 441 plus b squared, oops, my pen's not working here, is equal to 29 times 29. So I'm going to pull my calculator up, and I'm going to do 29 times 29, and that equals 841. Now I have to solve, remember, I'm trying to solve, oh, my square didn't get in there. I'm trying to find out what this x is, or in this case, b is. So now I have to get it by itself. So I need to isolate it. So therefore, I'm going to have to subtract 441 from both sides. So that leaves me with my b squared alone. And when I do that, I end up with b squared equaling 400. Now, again, that's not 400 meters he has to run or 400 yards, or we need to make sure that we understand that we are taking the square root of both of these numbers so I can solve for just my b. And when I take the square root of 400, we just did that in the first problem with my house. We knew that 20 times 20 was 400. So therefore, the square root of 400 will be 20. So in this case, this would be a 20-yard run, essentially, for him to make that pass there. All right. All right. So we're going to go do the form. Hopefully this has helped you. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to your teachers, and I hope you enjoy the form.